Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. There is good out there, much pain, but still time. That is the essence of the conflict right there. The ones who did not beware the bearers of false gifts and the broken promises were the governments, the United States Defense Department, the Russians. They went for the false gifts. Number one thing the government does not want to get out is that fact that this happened and they couldn't do a darn thing about it. That, I think, is where we are. I'm in a war, folks. I'm fighting in a war, and I'm fighting hard because I want this to work. And to make it work, they said, a new world if you can take it. This is what it means. Can you bear it? Can you take it? Can you rip it right out of our hands? Because unless you're strong enough, we don't care. That's where we are.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Higher Journeys. I'm your host, Alexis Brooks, and I pray to God that we can get through this interview. You guys, if you can see and you can hear me, which I don't know because it's been so wacky, I've got the illustrious Whitley Strieber in my presence, as well as the beautiful Kim Carlsberg, who you cannot see because we have had the most tumultuous, bonkers, wonky time of trying to get on the air. I have two platforms that I use. We're working with Zoom at the moment. We have Mr. Ron Janix, who I pray will come into the room. You guys, listen, I'm being really frank and honest with you because you're my audience. And this is part and parcel, Whitley, of what we talk about and some of the anomalies that are going on, which include, but are not limited to, technology. When we are discussing such anomalies, these anomalies seem to rear their ugly head, perhaps when they don't want us to talk about certain things. I don't know, Whitley, you tell me what's going on. What's happening here? Welcome.
Well, I'll tell you right now, in this flat where I live, there is a very strange signal, radio signal, at 144.1 megahertz. At the moment, if you turn on two radios at that megahertz level, exactly the same, slightly different models in this case from the same manufacturer, you get two different radios side by side. In fact, you take a look. One of them is pulling in one signal, and one of them is pulling in another. You can see the flashing on one, and the other one is steady.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that? Now that's impossible. It's not possible. This can't happen because it's as if you had two FM radios and you turned them both to the same station, but got different stations. That can't happen because that's not how radio propagates. Not only that, this is a very rarely used frequency that this is on. If you walk out of this apartment, one step out the door or onto the deck, the signal is gone. It doesn't propagate beyond the confines of this apartment. Now, no one knows the answer to the question of what is going on with these radios. I've had this studied extensively, and it is a true anomaly. So the bottom line is this. I'm not in the least surprised that we're having trouble. And anyone who, on your show, who is familiar with Dreamland, with my show, knows this happens on Dreamland all the time. And now we have an additional problem, which is known as Kim Carlsberg.
We do. Well, Kim's not the problem. Kim's the solution, but they don't want her to talk.
She's also a notorious electronic Jonah, aren't you, Kim?
Yes, absolutely. I am so used to this stuff. They have been following me for 40 years now. All my phones are tapped. The craziest stuff goes on when I'm trying to communicate with people on the phone. I actually, when I was living in Sedona, I actually had ETs come through on the phone, and it was crazy. And my girlfriend was on the other end, and we both just sat there going, "Can you believe this?" I'm going, "Yeah, I can believe this. This is an everyday occurrence in my life." So I just give up, and if it's supposed to happen, it'll happen. And I'm by no means a a technical guru. I know how to use a computer. I don't know how they work. But as of right now, I've lost you guys. I can't see you.
Hmm.
I can't hear you.
Well, thank God for that.
But
And so what's
we can hear
happening?
you too. And
Yeah.
as you notice, folks, Kim does not have you can't see her because she can't get on the video.
Yeah. And this is the second platform. We're talking about this for a reason because we think it's relevant to the larger picture of what I had planned on talking about today, and that has to do with alien infiltration. That is the working title of this show. Kidnapped, alien infiltration, why your thoughts are not your own. And they were like, by golly,
And that is precisely why we're having so much trouble.
I think so. I think
Oh,
so.
yes, no question about it.
Yeah.
That's
So-
one of the things that our dear little friends do not want us to talk about.
This is true.
Well,
I had a friend who moved here from California a few years back, and all the way, and he was a contactee, really, really brilliant guy, knows all about everything in the ET universe, Black Ops. We're doppelgangers, and we would just talk for hours, and they would disconnect us about every 5 minutes, all country. And
Yeah, that
finally,
sounds familiar.
yeah. So we didn't care. We just kept redialing and redialing. And so many times I've been able to hear the guys in the background talking. They'll make fun of us. And
What did they say? Or can you
I just hear conversation. I can't remember. It's happened so many times. They just want me to know that they're there, and they just, gibberish. And so I know that they're always listening and looking, even to this day. I don't know what they don't know about me yet. They've been following me since mid 80s. And I don't know what they don't know. And they're still following me. And what else is there to know about me? I mean, my life is an open book. I write books, I speak at conferences, I speak on radio, and yet they still follow me all the time and let me know they're there. Like, what do you think I'm going to come up with next? Anything valuable for you guys? I don't think so, but they must think so, because they still follow me.
yeah.
And
By the way, forgive me, my head's been down for a little while because I'm texting with, we're talking to the folks at Contact in the Desert. We'll eventually get to why the heck we're with you today to talk about this wonderful event. And along with all the wonkiness, Captain Ron Janix, who now is the proprietor of, along with a couple of other partners, Contact in the Desert, he too got the times mixed up. So I'm texting his producer and she's like, but he didn't get the link, but we're supposed to start on StreamYard. Now we're on Zoom. Okay, here he is. Here he is. What timing? Let's let him in the room. My God. Let's see if he comes on in. This is brilliant. Yes, guys. Brilliant. Here goes the microphone wonkiness again. Let's see. Hopefully Ron coming in shortly. So bear with us. Yes, we're talking about Contact in the Desert. It's about to happen May 30th through June 3rd. Right, Captain Ron?
That is correct. I'm finally
Listen,
here.
man, we're going to catch you up to speed real quick. Welcome to the show. You have no idea, with your friend
Lots of
Whitley
nonsense
Strieber,
today, huh?
myself, and Kim Carlsberg, who you can't see, what we have been through. Bear with me, Ron. Let me catch you up to speed, dude. So we start on StreamYard, which I never, ever, ever have a problem with. I won't even take you through all the iterations of problems that I have never seen before. The computer muting me on its own, him not able to connect, Whitley not able to speak. It went on and on and on. We said, okay, we'll go to Zoom. That's sure to work. We had a feeling something was going on, right, Whitley? because this stuff happens all the time.
Right.
Lo and
We
behold,
sure did.
we go to Zoom. You wouldn't believe the stuff that's happening over here. So, welcome to the show. I'm just being real candid with my audience. I do not operate this way, but you know what? This is part and parcel of what we are talking about today. Alien infiltration. Your thoughts are not your own and your Zoom's not your own. So, welcome Ron Janix to the show. Just jump on into the crazy conversation.
Glad to be here. I really appreciate it. Sorry, I was running a little bit late, and then I couldn't get the other link to work, and then I couldn't get on here. That was a weird thing to happen.
See? Okay, Ron. And by the way, say hello to Kim. We can't see Kim. Maybe she'll just pop in, when the beings decide to let her in. But Kim Carlsberg, another one of our brilliant speakers for Contact in the Desert, is with us in voice
Something
only.
that happens. It's just the way the world is today.
Nice to meet you, Ron.
Good seeing you. I'm looking forward to all you guys at Contact, and of course, Whitley. It's an honor to have you here. I've been doing a lot of interviews for Contact, and just about every one I mention you, of course, as
Oh,
an
good.
early influence for me in communion that got me on this path, and the fact that you're still doing amazing work in our community, and I think it's really important, and it's a real honor to have you as part of our Legends panel. As a matter of fact, this year we're going to do a Legends panel, and of course,
Yeah, it's a very iffy thing to be a legend, because you think to yourself, when does the coffin close?
Right.
Is anyone going to tell me that?
Nothing about age. It's not that. It's just about the
No,
volume
it's
of
not
work
actually.
that you've contributed
I,
to
I'm
this, of course.
I'm just a very determined person, and this really happened to me. And when a bunch of jerks started laughing at me and telling me it never happened or calling me a liar, that caused me to dig my heels in, and that's why I'm still here.
You know, that's one
I
of the
don't like
facts that
being called a
I
liar.
point out, Whitley, to a lot of people is I specifically on an interview a couple days ago was telling somebody, because they were saying when Communion came out, I think you faced some criticism that you're a
Oh,
science
yes.
fiction writer, and they would think you're making this up. And here we are, 40 years later, and you're embedded in this community and one of our champions. So you can throw that right out the window.
Right.
I have had the experience of being introduced on the radio as, and here's Mr. Alien Sex, Whitley Strieber.
Mr. What?
I-
Alien
Alien
sex.
Sex. Whitley
Alien
Strieber.
sex. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a shame that
And
that's
my
just one of
rape
those
was
things
turned
that
into
stuck,
my rape was turned into an international joke on South
Wow.
Park, I believe it was, when I made the mistake of calling it a rectal probe because I was embarrassed to call it a rape, and I had the experience, and still have it to an extent, of being laughed at publicly for having been raped, an injury that took 20 years to heal, and still bothers me from time to time. It was that severe.
Well, I have to
Unbelievable.
say, I'm going to come in and say, look, Whitley, you know how much you're loved in this community and beyond. And when you think about how tumultuous these experiences can be, never mind the experience itself, but the so-called ridicule that is still just, maddening.
Yeah.
Think of the tough skin that you've
I also
developed. Think of the skin that you developed and the caliber that you have set for so many others to come behind you and have courage. So these experiences have not been in vain, no doubt. Right?
I think they're frozen now.
No, Whitley's there. Can you
Oh,
hear us,
there you
Whitley?
No, I'm not frozen. I saw a message came up that said cloud recording is ready for streaming now. And I don't know what the heck that is. It didn't come up on the Zoom. It came up on my computer, but why and from where?
Never seen this before.
I haven't
listen.
either.
Let's talk about Contact in the Desert. So is this a taste of what the wonkiness that we're going to be experiencing now?
We
hope
won't
Y'all
not.
know.
there. We're
No.
really going to try to have everything polished. This is
I
our
know.
second year. I think it's going to be
Captain Ron and is an excellent organizer.
Oh,
and,
no, listen, I know
we're
that.
gonna be rolling right along at
Right.
Contact. I assure you, from experience with him.
I know
We've
that.
sorted out a lot of the bugs. We're really dialed in. We're really going to have a professional show, and we're looking forward to it. We're going to celebrate 10 years. We're going to have a couple of 10-year party celebrations for that fact. And, you know, obviously we have an incredible lineup. I'm really excited about the legends, of course. We're doing Women of Ufology, which is something we haven't done before.
Of which I'm on the panel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And I,
You
And
know, tonight
Kim.
we're going to do 14 panels this year. So we're really trying to.
wow.
I can believe it. Yeah. It's going
Yeah,
to be.
congratulations. And by the way, when I say wonky, I'm being a bit facetious. I'm not at all talking about your ability. This, I mean, I was there last year, and Ron Janix and his partners took this really big behemoth conference over last year, and I applaud you tremendously. And the steps that you've taken this year. I know that you all have your act together. When I say wonkiness, I'm talking about the things like this that seem to be out of our control. And is this indicative of some of the, let's go back to this idea in a very serious way, of infiltration to whatever degree of perhaps non-human intelligence? That is the for this conversation, and look what's happened here. Let's get some thoughts on that. And if so, why?
Well,
But-
I've lived with it for 35, 40 years. And it comes in every shape and form. And at this point, I something to go awry, no matter what I'm doing. The only time I really feel safe is when I'm in a big audience and I know they're not going to mess with that many people. So I like doing the bigger conferences. Except the last one I did, I got COVID and I was sick for 4 months, but
Oh my
I
God.
hope
my goodness.
I built an immune. So, and I love the desert and I can't wait to get back there. You know, I lived in LA for 40 years, and Palm Springs was a regular visiting place. And so I know that area and I love that area, and I can't wait to get there again and see all my friends. I have so many friends in this community, and the ability to make so many more.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have signed up, but do you have any idea?
We're
Well,
looking
we
at
should
thousands.
we'll have between 2,000 and 3,000 people there.
That's
It's going to be a
fantastic.
big event.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
that's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really
Um,
looking forward to it. It's good to have everybody back after, you know, there was an absence there from COVID that contact was shut down.
Right.
It's nice
Yeah.
to have it back.
Absolutely.
It's
This
nice
is
for it to come back. That's very true.
absolutely. This is without a doubt my favorite. Sorry, guys, anyone else? They're all good, but this is my favorite. Absolutely. And it is indeed a family. And, you know, again, still dealing with such an elusive topic that is still not universally accepted, to be able to have a destination to go to talk to people of like mind, other experiencers, and all sorts of entry points, but also the top speakers in this field, hands down, is an experience you just can't get anywhere else. And again, my hat's off to you, Captain Ron, for leading this ship.
Well, we're
Incredible.
also seeing, you know, in society, I mean, think about this. Did any of us think just a few years ago that there would be the head of the Senate would write, the majority leader would write a bill called the UAP Disclosure Act? Did we think
No,
that the UAP caucus in Congress? I mean,
that's astonishing, isn't it?
yeah. So, you know, I know it's moving glacially, but thanks to pioneers like Mr. Strieber, we are moving this down the field a little bit. It is a little bit more accepted, I believe.
Absolutely.
I think it's actually a lot more accepted. There are places where it's not accepted. Any place that the defense industry and the Defense Department can reach, it's not accepted. And stay true, because they will not change their stripes. They can't.
Yeah.
Incidentally, I just remembered something about electronic fits. You know, I have these periods when all the electronics go berserk, and my wife used to call them electroleptic fits, and she would say, "Oh, don't go in there." To our son, your dad's having an electroleptic fit. I'm afraid the TV's going to blow up.
Alexis,
And once
it's not
walked
your fault.
into
It's Whitley's. That's what's happening here.
Right. Well,
Right.
listen, in all seriousness, there is a phenomenon that is called the streetlight syndrome. It's painted sort of broadly, but these are people that for whatever reason, their field is
They put
so
out street light. I used to do that all the time. I
I
don't do it
believe it.
now.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the question is, could when we have a very serious conversation about what on earth is or off, I always say going on, we have to really look seriously at what effect may we be having our biological corporeal structure on the environment around us. Could it be that, you know, collectively we're carrying so much of these experiences that we are literally having, albeit a remote effect on the equipment that we're using? I don't want to just put it on the beings themselves. It could be, what skin do we have in the game? What are your thoughts?
Well,
Ron, what are your thoughts?
Well, I know for a fact that when I get with certain people, craziness happens.
Mhm.
And I can be with a regular person and nothing happens. But if I'm with other contactees, um, watch out, you know, just watch out. Things happen. And I don't know. I know that I've been to a few conferences when you get a bunch of contactees together. I've seen bizarreness, and I'm hoping I don't see that this time, but I'm expecting it. Something's
Don't
gonna
conjure
happen.
it. It's going to be fabulous. Going to be fabulous.
Yeah.
Whitley, I want to move on to some other things. It'll probably invariably come back to this unusually wonky period on this show today, guys. And thanks for bearing with us. But I want to move on to a few subjects I want to hit. One has to do with you just recently interviewed Dr. Joseph Farrell, who I adore. He's just such a walking repository of information and great knowledge. And you shared a story that I'd like you to share with our audience today, having to do, and I believe this was in 2016, where you had a very, very odd experience in which you wanted to harm yourself. I'm going to take this somewhere and connect the dots. Do you know what I'm
Well,
talking
committing
about in your
suicide, yes.
building?
Yeah, I do, yes.
Would you be willing to share that with us, and then maybe we can kind of
Sure.
connect some dots with that?
I was here in the evening, um, living my normal life, and I suddenly began to think about suicide. You know, and I'll be frank, I've thought about it numerous times when we were losing the cabin, and when I was just feeling so overwhelmed by the opposition and the laughing, and you know, there's something about being laughed at that really hurts. It's worse than being it's hard. So anyway, I was going through that. It was hard. And but not at this point. At this point, things were quiet. Annie had passed away, and I had been grieving. This is late 2016, and but I was, you know, everybody dies, and you know, you have to live with it, and I was living with it. I didn't. The idea of offing myself wasn't in my mind, and I suddenly began to have this overwhelming urge to get my gun and blow my brains out,
Wow.
and I could not. It was terrifying. I finally ended up just sitting in the middle of the couch like this, just with my arms crossed and my eyes closed, just saying, "You will not do this. You will not move off this couch." It was that powerful. Finally, it went away, and it was like something coming in from the outside. It was very strange. Later that night, the young below us shot himself.
Oh man,
Wow.
that is bizarre.
And since then I have been very wary of that. Well, you know, I know a lot about Havana syndrome and
I want to talk
about
about
the
that.
fact that the US government has been covering it up and lying and trying to screw with the people who have suffered from it. And I know some of those people personally. And I've talked it out with a couple of them, and what happened to them is very different from this, but it's in the same spectrum because something was done to my mind, and I think whatever it was done probably electronically somehow,
Mhm.
and it affected the poor guy downstairs,
Oh,
24-year-old guy,
Were
or
they-
maybe not. Maybe it was just a coincidence. You can never
well,
tell.
Were you able to get any context around the circumstances around this gentleman's death? Did he have problems before?
I have no
or-
idea.
You don't know?
I didn't
Okay.
know him. I have no idea. I know he had two roommates and they were away for the weekend when it happened.
Wow.
But I didn't know him and I didn't investigate. It wasn't my place. I mean, I was just an anonymous neighbor in the building.
Right. Right.
I couldn't go snooping around.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the Havana syndrome because I did want to talk about this. Ironically, for those of you that don't know, the Havana syndrome is a phenomenon that's based on an incident that happened in Havana, Cuba. And interestingly, 2016, Whitley, the same year you had this experience.
That's right. I hadn't thought of that, but you're quite right.
2016 is when these US and Canadian diplomats who were at the embassy in Cuba, and I remember when it made the news, were complaining of these very anomalous sounds in the, audible sounds in the head, as well as vertigo and other strange phenomena. And you have to wonder, we know that so many of this covert technology, this exotic technology, is oftentimes first tested within the confines of intelligence and military, but the eventual deployment may be on a larger scale. What are your thoughts? Ron, I want you to pop in on this. Are you familiar with the Havana syndrome?
Yeah, vaguely, but I was just wondering right here that you were saying this, Alexis, is Whitley, do you and Kim, like now when anything happens in your life, like the cable goes better, do you immediately go to maybe it's the visitors kind of a thing, or how does that affect you?
No, not at all in my case. I don't know about Kim. I always think it's something else until
I,
it turns out not to be.
I
Yeah.
I'm
I don't have that many occurrences, but I do have to say, I lived in Sedona for 6 years, and Sedona is such a portal, and anomalous things happen there every single day. And one morning, everything electronic in the entire city went down for about 5 hours. I'm talking cell phones, TVs, computers, anything. And a cell phone is not connected to the electrical grid, right?
right.
So
Totally.
everything went down. And within a few hours, there were fights at the gas stations. People were pulling guns, they were fighting. And it was astonishing. And you knew right away it was a black ops experiment to see how long it takes for people to lose their mind. And so I've experienced a lot of things like that, but personally, when things happen to me, um, they happen, and I'm used to it. So I don't think anything of it. I don't sleep. I've been an insomniac since my abduction started. So as long as I stay awake all night, I can sleep during the day, and some of it can go away, but I'm terrified of the night, and because that's when they come.
Me too. And lately I've had loads of trouble with it, and I'm really having trouble sleeping right now. Every night is a living hell for me. Just now.
Is this Whitley?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is Whitley talking.
Yeah.
Kim can't see us. Insomnophobia, by the way, is a very legitimate, not to be confused with insomnia, the inability to go to sleep, which may be what Whitley's talking about, but the fear of sleep, Ron. This is something that I actually incorporated into my keynote last year at Contact in the Desert, entitled Unconscious Contact. Are you an experiencer and don't know it? I covered phobias at great length, and one of them, phobias that may be clues that you may be having contact, whether you're conscious of it or not. And insomnophobia, you guys, is one of them, along with several others that I won't get into now. Which brings me to Ron. I'm going to ask Ron a question. So listen, Captain Ron, I've listened to you on a few interviews over the years, and one I listened to recently had to do with your impetus for getting involved in this field. And you told the gentleman, I can't recall their names, who you were interviewing, or who was interviewing you, but you said that you've just always had a fascination for these subjects, though you do not consider yourself to be an experiencer. I always question that. have you ever pondered the possibility, though unconscious of it, that you could be?
I hear those stories and I hear that people have had those experiences, but I have no reason to believe a direct experience like that ever. I've never consciously felt that way at all.
Well, consciously.
Well, I mean, I've never done hypnotic regression or anything like that, but as far as I know, I've never had any direct contact experience of any kind.
So where does this, uh, I
In-
won't assume
Interest come
unquenchable
from.
thirst come from, but where does this intense interest come from, you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it just seems to me like this is the big question of why we're here. You put on the TV and it's all nonsense.
Yeah.
This to me, these are the things that just as a human being, I want to know, what else is out there and what's going to happen to us when we die. The big questions have always fascinated me. And
Mhm.
how did they build that? And those kind of things. So I think it's just a natural curiosity to gravitate towards the big topics that as a human being, I want to know.
And how long has this been going on? When did this start for you?
Well, even when I was younger, I watched In Search of, and those things interested me a little bit. But like I mentioned, honestly, it was reading Communion,
Mm.
reading Chariots of the Gods, and then listening to Art Bell on those early shows. That really just sparked an interest. I'm like, yeah, that is curious. Why don't we know this? And I wonder what's happening, and that sort of thing. And it just sort of sucks you in.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I've just always had the idea that if you have an interest in this subject, there's a reason. And it's more than just interest, because normal people are not interested in this stuff at all. My best friend, I'm in the Bible Belt now, and she is, I would say, Mormon-ish, I guess, and all of her friends. And when I met her 20 years ago, um, she she just sort of kind of, laughed when I told her about my experiences. And then over the years, I just dropped little hints along the way over the years. And here she's my best friend and she knows me. I'm not an idiot. I have no reason to make up something like that that would destroy my life, which it did. Um, and so finally, do you know what convinced her? Just makes me so upset. Um, when they put that thing on TV,
What thing?
what's the UFO? What do they call it?
Oh, the tic tac.
Tic Tac, Tic Tac.
2017, the 2017 revelation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And when she saw that and her friends saw that, they were convinced. After I'd been talking to her for 15 years,
Mm.
it took one little clip on TV to change their minds. I mean, that's how simple people are.
Mhm.
But I'm glad they did that. And then, of course, the follow-up was the congressional, UAP thing. And they saw that, and that further made it believable for them.
Yeah.
And now when I talk about UFOs, she's all ears. But it
Interesting.
took, like I said, almost 20 years for her to hear me.
Right. Whitley, you're
I
going to
want
be
to, I
talking
want to go.
about all this. So get into it. Getting closer. What will contact actually be like? That's the name of your lecture at Contact. Let's fold that in.
You're talking to me?
I'm talking to you. Yes. Your talk is coming up.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, because it's not going to be, it is not going to be the Space Brothers coming in and giving us really cool cell phones from another world. That ain't going to happen. It is going to be the overturning of reality as we know it. And exactly how that will happen and what it will mean is something that we have to understand as best we can before it unfolds. Because if we don't, we're going to be plunged into a level of non-meaning that we can't escape from, and we're going to lose our place in reality. In other words, you're talking about an entire species going insane, which
Absolutely.
could happen.
I agree with you.
By the way, I want to circle back just for a second, this business of all these happening today, because as we've been talking, I keep getting texts from friends. One of them says, I just had a glass shatter in my hand when I was trying to get a glass of water. Another says, I hope all is well. I've had a rough go at it today. I'm still in bed, but I'll be there tonight, referring to a show I'm going to be on. And it's very strange, because you don't usually get people, something is in the air today. So, but getting back, that's a parenthetical. Getting back to the main question, we have to try to put together something coherent for ourselves. It will enable us to absorb the shock of contact. People say, oh, we're ready. I'm ready. We're ready. No, no. They say that because they don't know they're not ready. And someone like me or Kim have been struggling with this for years
Mhm.
Decades.
and
Yeah.
decades, exactly.
Right. I'm gonna
And
pop. I'm sorry. I'm gonna pop in because Ron needs to run, and I want Whitley to continue. Ron, I know. Listen, you're busy getting ready for this big event.
Oh,
So,
sorry. I have another one over here. They're waiting
oh,
for me to host them.
oh my God. Listen,
Thank you
thank you
for
for
having me
joining us,
on,
Ron.
and it was
looking
great
forward to
seeing
it,
you.
Ron, and thank you for doing it
I will see you in a week.
Yes.
in a
Wow.
week.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Namaste. Adios,
Yeah.
amigos. Thanks, Ron. Bye. Okay, sorry about that, Whitley. He just texted me.
Oh, that's
This is
okay.
like the most impromptu, and you know what I kind of love, even with the glitches, because the journeyers, my team, my family, my audience, they're very gracious and can deal with some of this stuff. So thank you for hanging with us, guys. Whitley, please continue,
Yeah, they're
sir.
forgiving.
Forgiving.
They're
Yeah,
forgiving.
that's the word.
Yes.
Continue, sir.
Well, the in my book, Them, I go through 11 different contact experiences, and I will be going through them at contact. And they are so different from each other and also from what we think is true. We assume. In other words, we assume a flying saucer lands, little funny looking little people who are basically sort of just like us get out. No, 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 not at all. A flying saucer lands, but you have to begin by realizing that everything we perceive, everything that comes flowing into our minds comes through our senses. And if someone doesn't have senses like we do, then their minds don't see the world like ours. And if you think you live on a planet where every single species is essentially out of communication with every other species, we cannot talk to elephants. We can't even talk to the cats and dogs in our homes. We can interact with them very comfortably because we have a shared language. But what we don't know is their language. We can't see the world through their eyes. And therefore, we can train each other because your dog trains you and you train your dog. You train each other to a mutually agreed set of rules, and that's what your language is. That's what we have to do with the visitors. But
Mm.
the difference is this: they are infinitely more complex than your dog. They have lots of motives, not all of which necessarily are going to be motives that we approve of. And they are going to want to act on behalf of their motives. And we are going to have to figure out what that means to us. And it's not
Right.
going to be easy.
It's interesting. I'm going to say this, and I want Kim to jump back in. Whitley, this year, the talk that I'm giving is called From Earth to the Stars, exploring the connection between animals, ETs, and us. This is the lecture that I will be giving. And guess who's in the lecture? You are, Whitley, because I had a chance to get some thoughts about this possible animals as emissaries on behalf of some of the beings. So interesting that you should bring that up. But I'm vibing with your statement. I think you're right. It's such a complex affair. Humility is the universal mandate that we must carry as we continue this walk into the unknown. So thank you for that. Kim, come on in, girlfriend.
Hi there.
Your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I've always been an animal lover. I've always had animals, and I have always been able to communicate with them telepathically.
Mm.
So there's something that most people just don't see, or they're not in touch with, or don't care about. They want somebody to cuddle up next to them so they can pet them. But as far as really communicating with other species, I believe the whole universe is telepathic. And when you can tune into that and acknowledge it and stretch your mind, you can communicate with anything and anybody, any animal. And so we're a lot more connected than any of us believe. And that's one of the things I focus on my presentation, because it's just, it's my experience.
Mhm.
I walk down the street and I talk to every animal I meet, and they talk back. So not in words per se, but if you look them in the eye, you can get that telepathic communication. And it's the same thing with the ETs. All my experiences with the ETs have been telepathic, and I've had hundreds. So I know that's the universal language.
Mhm.
And when I realized it for the first time, I thought, well, this is convenient. I don't have to say words. They just can read my mind. But
Right.
in the
Whitley,
beginning, it was
right.
terrifying, because
Oh, yeah.
here I am, and I've got all these beings around me that can read every thought that I have, and it scared me to death. And I had one experience where I was taken into a room with about a half a dozen female ETs, and they walked over to me, and they surrounded me. And, you know, I've been being abducted probably my whole life. And when you know you're being abducted and beings are reading your mind, you try to get real honest real fast.
Mm.
So I spent most of my life trying to be as honest as I could possibly be. But I'm sure there are times when I messed up. So when these female ETs surrounded me in this room, and they realized that I had lied about something somewhere in my childhood, they were astonished, and they went and they pulled back and ran across the room and didn't want to be anywhere around me. So that's when I started realizing the importance of telepathy and the importance of keeping a clear mind and a clean mind, because we're always being observed.
I love that. Whitley, I know you
You
have a
know, I
lot to
have
say
to,
about that. Go ahead.
I just have to say that I think that is one of the most brilliant and incisive and deeply true statements about contact with ETs I've ever heard in my life. So thank you for that, Kim. And folks,
Mhm.
I would I would make a recording of that and keep it in your in your life, because you're going to need it. She knows what she's talking about, 100%.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
this business of
you would say that because you know.
well, exactly. I know everything about this. I know all about you're dead on right about the lying thing. They've told me that every lie is a little weight that is on your soul. It's one of
Right.
the things I stopped doing, thinking about, and fooling around in any way with politics, because it's a liar's heaven,
It
and I
is.
don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah.
And in this field, there are people who it's what Annie used to say, connecting the dots. In other words, you have an enigmatic experience, and then you make something out of it that isn't really there, that didn't really happen. You have to not do that, and that's real hard, because often what you actually remember is so strange and so fractured. You know something happened, and then the next thing you know, you're talking about where they're from and how the ship worked and all this stuff, and you can't do that. You
Mhm.
must not do that.
Right. Resist
You
the
must not go
temptation.
beyond the boundaries of what you actually experienced as
Right.
best you can.
Absolutely. Well, I can chime in on that briefly, having had a profound 3-month-long experience, sustained experience back in 2005, of which I count myself as an experiencer, although it doesn't carry a lot of the hallmarks that a typical, if there is such a thing, experiencer had. But one of the things I quickly came to understand is that in terms of explaining or wanting to distill the experience, uh, I couldn't. I just I couldn't. It eluded me because some of the features of it were so bizarre. But you do, humans are habituated to wanting to make sense of something. So you might find yourself either stretching the truth or putting it in a context that you can articulate out to someone else. But no, very wise on the part of both of you, Whitley and Kim. I have to ask both of you. You talk about the communication that occurs between the visitors, as you call them, Whitley, and us as experiencers. I don't think I've ever of an encounter that included a mouth to mouth the way we're communicating. Ever. It's always telepathic, is it
No,
not?
me neither. Never, never. One word, 2 words, have joy. And that had something to do with my wife because that became her mantra.
And you
And
heard that verbally?
yeah, I heard it and it sounded, well, now let's be clear. I think I heard it verbally. That's
Mm.
how it came through to me. But and it's the only thing that's really come through like that.
Yeah.
There was one other incident, a couple of incidents where uh one of them would make a sound, oh, like that. But never talking. And the people who are bred in with them somehow, what people call hybrids, most of them that I've met can't talk either. They have to do with
Mhm.
telepathy.
Well, mine was for 3
Yeah,
months.
they just can grunt.
How did you go? What you mean you disappeared for 3 months?
I didn't disappear. This was
Yeah, I
not.
was just gonna.
Well, no, I had what would be loosely called a peak experience, transformational experience. Some people call it a Kundalini awakening, whatever you want to call it, a out of the blue epiphany that catapulted me with one foot in one reality and one right here. But in the course of the 3 months, it sustained for 3 months where I was literally in an altered state of consciousness. I was able to function. I was a walking paradox, I suppose. And it included all sorts of anomalies, guys. It's too much to get into. Maybe over, I don't know, a cup of tea at contact or maybe a cocktail. We can talk about it.
Yeah.
I'll share more of it with you. But nonetheless, lots of, not lots, all of the dialogue that was occurring between me and whatever was outside of me was telepathic, of course. So
Sure. Yeah.
we're going to wind down because we've done well. And what I can't wait to find out, guys, what I'm left with for the recording. This will be a produced show. I want to I have a question for both of you that I'd like you to and it's pretty deep actually, but I'd like to get your weigh in on this. Whitley, you were talking with Dr. Farrell about this idea of spiritual warfare. Not an original idea. A lot of people are wondering right now if we are immersed in some semblance of a spiritual war as we speak. But I would love to get your thoughts, given all of not only the bad things, there's great things going on, but we're in some really wonky, bizarro times. What are your thoughts on the
Right.
fact that we may be in a spiritual war?
Well, that takes me back to England, to the crop circle region, to a little community called Crabwood, lovely name for a town. And I believe it was 2002, a remarkable crop formation appeared. The crop formation consisted of primarily an image of a gray, very fierce looking,
Oh
and
yeah.
beside it
Yep.
a a disc. And on the disc there was ASCII code that could be read, and it said, uh, "Beware the bearers of false gifts and their broken promises. There is good out there, much pain, but still time." That is the essence of the conflict right there. The ones who did not beware the bearers of false gifts and the broken promises were the governments, the United States Defense Department, the Russians. They went for the false gifts. I remember very well my uncle telling me, I had an uncle who was involved in the Roswell incident, in the gathering of the materials at Wright Field, telling me that the craft they had was empty. It had no propulsion system, meaning that they did not know how it had moved. And since it had crashed, you have to wonder where whatever the propulsion system is went. I've got ideas about what it really was, but we're not going to get into that now. The point is they're false gifts because they don't really actually work. And the promises, I suspect strongly that they asked for and were given permission to abduct a few people for research purposes. And it
A
turned
few
into,
people? Whitley.
exactly. It went nuts. It turned into a huge thing. And
It's a
number
nation.
one, that,
We have a
yes,
nation of abductees.
right.
A
The
planet.
number one thing the government does not want to get out is that fact that this happened and they couldn't do a darn thing about it. That, I think, is where we are.
Well, that's always been the case. If they weren't afraid of us knowing, we would all know.
That's right.
They're afraid of us knowing because that takes their control away. And
And you're talking about the ETs, not the government.
no, I'm talking about the government.
The government.
Oh, okay. Because
Yeah.
I think the ETs are in the same. I think they're on the same side, except not the ones who said there's good out there. Those are ours. Those are the ones we need to be in touch with.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I know that they're good and bad on both sides. And I don't know if I want to call them bad. Yeah, I'm going to call them bad. I've had some horrible experiences with the ETs. And then I've had some that weren't so bad. And so, just like with human beings. So as above is below, right?
So
Or
below, absolutely. Well, Whitley, you said, I'm going to quote you. You said there's more than one someone here. There's more than one someone here, and they do not agree.
That's absolutely correct, in my opinion. I
They do not
have
agree.
seen signs of conflict, a lot of signs of conflict in the writing of my books and what's going on right now. I'm writing a book, and just like the last two books, there is support and there is opposition, both. The opposition in this case is ferocious. This is the past 6 weeks have probably been among the worst times I've ever known in my life. And because of things that have happened due to this. But at the same time, the support is extraordinary. And I'm not going to go into how it works because I'm afraid someone will come along and try to ruin it. But it has been extraordinary. So the book's going along, it's working. And despite the opposition, the last time with them, it was so ferocious that I left the United States and went to England and was taken in by a family.
Recently?
And it turned out
recently?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is my life, Alexis. This isn't in the past.
No, I know.
I'm living this.
This just how you were, because them is not that old. You left the country.
There's a couple of years, last year, 2 years, a year and a half ago now.
I did not know that.
So I went to England. This family took me in. I wrote the book at their kitchen table, and their brilliant 22-year-old daughter was work from home, because like everybody does now, she's in a business. And it turned out that she was the best person to help me with my book since Anne. She was stunningly brilliant at it. And so I would talk to her about my book when she was sort of working on her work, and we'd have a couple of seconds of conversation. And I thought to myself, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
How did you
I thought I
find her,
would.
Whitley?
It was she came on my website because she was curious, and she invited me to stay with them when I went to England.
Wow.
And I said, great. So I had this, but something else went wrong. The website was attacked. I was physically attacked. That's why I went to England. She had all of her emails from the past year blasting back into her computer. Her email address appeared on the admin area of our website to make it look like she was the one who was wrecking the website. In other words, it was all unbelievably sinister. Something was trying to not let that relationship happen. Then the book comes along, and I understand why that this is happening, because this is a special person with the same kind of mind Anne had. And how am I going to meet another person in the world like this? So when the new book comes on, I think I've got her. This is going to be great. The whole family blows me off. They won't talk to me at all anymore. And I don't get the benefit of her support on this book. And that's how the dark side of this works. It never stops digging and digging and hurting in any way it can. I practically busted a gut. I had a blood pressure crisis because I was so shocked by by this unexpected thing. And I don't think these people can explain what happened, because I think it was done by mind control.
Sure.
I wanted to bring that up because I know that you brought it up before. I'm familiar. I didn't realize the back end that she was the one involved in them, and then the subsequent book that you're writing now, because I heard you talk about this before. I wanted to exactly fold that into. Let's spend a few more minutes if we can, guys. This is a very uncharacteristic conversation.
Boy, listen, I need to calm down here. I'm really steamed up.
Oh God.
Sorry.
But let me say this to you, Whitley. Look, we have a mass phenomenon going on here. I want to fold in, when I talk about infiltration from whomever it's coming from, I am seeing the most bizarre, inexplicable, unexplainable behavior in terms of a 180 shift in people that I've known forever. Some I've known for a long time, some
Me
not as
too.
long.
Kim, how is it?
It's crazy. Let's talk about that. What's going on?
Well, this happened to me with these people. I mean, it was just unbelievably bizarre.
You know, some of my best friends, closest friends, have gone totally berserk in the last few months. I
Mine
don't
too.
I don't know them. They're what do you call it when you're the opposite of what you are.
Well, we have a saying in the community, they got new on you. They got new on you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm at the point where this stuff happens every day, and I've learned to just let it roll off my back. I don't respond to anything anymore because I have to avoid an emotional response, which is difficult because we're emotional beings. But I've learned that it does me no good to respond to these people when they're out of their minds.
Yeah.
No, it does no good whatsoever. And that's the bizarre part of it, because, I didn't do anything.
Whitley, what happened? Did they just stop communicating with you? Can you share a little bit more?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. I live in California. It is a place where when you say to someone, "I love you," we say it at parties. I mean, it's a common statement, and it's very common in America. It's also very common in England to say that to people you do love. And I said that to the father, and I said that to the girl, but I didn't mean like, I want to marry you or anything like that. I meant it the way we would mean it at a party.
Right.
And they just took it completely insanely. I was flabbergasted. I mean, the last thing in my mind is being interested in a young kid like that. I'm an old man, for God's sakes. I couldn't handle that even if I wanted to. So, it was just, and why would anyone think, why would the father think that if I said that to him, that I had the hots on for his daughter?
You were saying
I mean,
you were
why would I
expressing it to
tell
the
him?
family. So you were
I
saying
was
to the whole
expressing it to the family. It was exactly, and I tried to explain that to them. They didn't get it. They absolutely did not get it. I said, I'm talking about the family. I do love you. I love all of you.
And England is famous for its expression is hello, love you, love,
Mm.
hello, love,
Yeah,
love.
that's
Hello.
right.
Right.
They say it all the time to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, yeah, that's why I think there was some kind of mind control involved, because it makes no sense.
Well, maybe it's because you're not English.
No,
Maybe they
I'm
felt
going to
that.
vehemently disagree. Look, let's stop.
No, it's not
There's
that.
something else going
They
on. Yeah.
were perfectly normal friends, and I say I love you to my friends all the time, to my
As do I.
good friends and dear friends, and that's what they were. And merely saying that destroyed the entire friendship,
No.
and it was just broke my heart, and it
That's
broke my heart,
crazy.
and it
That's
screwed my book up too. So I was out. I was just appalled. I nearly busted a gut. I had these blood pressure crises. I had to go to the hospital.
Well, you can't
I
let that
really,
happen. We need you.
really, well,
Can't.
yeah, well, and then the other thing that happened was these, there's a certain type of dream. There's I believe a tribe in Laos that they have a type of dream so terrifying that it kills you.
Mm.
I've had some of those that were induced from the outside, and they did nearly kill me. The last one I had was 2 nights ago, and I woke up, my blood pressure was 148 over 100. And you can't survive long if with that. I'm under medical care. Don't worry, folks, I'm trying my best. But I'm gonna have a stroke or a heart attack if I'm not careful here.
If you're not
It
careful, but
once went
you
up
will
to
be.
300 over just a little over 200 when I was trapped at the Esalen Institute and the roads were out, and I couldn't get out to a doctor. It was terrifying. And there's something, I mean, I'm in a war, folks. I'm fighting in a war, and I'm fighting hard because I want this to work. And to make it work, they said, a new world if you can take it. This is what it means. Can you bear it? Can you take it? Can you rip it right out of our hands? Because unless you're strong enough, we don't care. That's where we are.
I'm sorry, Whitley, I had to step away for a minute.
That's okay,
So-
Kim. We're going to close down. I know Kim can't see us. This has been a profound conversation. It started wonky. It ended bizarre. But Whitley, let's just say, and I'm going to say it on the record, I have no problem saying it. I love you. Kim, I love
Well, I
you.
love you too.
I love
I
you.
love
too.
Kim
I
a
love you
lot. And I
both.
hope to see you at Contact. It's been too long.
We're going to have a great celebration together. Whitley,
And
we're-
folks, wait a minute, Alexis, one thing before
Okay.
we go,
Yeah.
remember what Kim said about lying and about that was the most perfect thing. She nailed it.
you're here. Kim, thank you, love. We know you've been through a lot. I so wish in post we're going to put up a beautiful picture of you, and all the more reason everyone to come on out to Contact. So not only will you see us moving and talking at the same time, you'll get to give us a hug. Come on out to Contact in the Desert. Listen,
Well,
go to
Whitley,
Contact in the Desert. Go to contactinthedesert.com. Hold on, Kim. Let me get my plug out.
Sorry.
It's hard because Kim can't see us.
Yeah.
Contactinthedesert.com. Go to the profile of Kim Carlsberg. Go to the profile of Whitley Strieber. Go to the profile of yours truly so you can find out what the heck we're talking about. Not too dissimilar to what we're talking about right here. Kim, my dear, please go ahead.
I forget now.
Hey,
I
we started
forget.
wonky, we'll end wonky. I'm going to leave it there. Do not hang up, you guys. I want to say a proper goodbye off the air, but I am going to sign off with the Journeyers for now. Listen, guys, thanks for hanging with us, and I can't wait to see what when I download this video, how it sounds. But it's all good. Love you. Don't hang up, guys.
Love
Talk
you
to soon.
too.
Bye.